Hi guys. The name is Mark, and I'm just gonna babble about a few things. I've been putting out a lot of videos lately where I'm babbling about things. Um, a few years back, I don't really know what's gonna come out of my face, so I'm just gonna let it flow like the universe should. And basically, like a few years back, I started doing what I was doing, and I thought I would try to enlighten the world, enlighten people and stuff. And I don't like these terms like woke and wake up and all that stuff because a wake is a funeral that you would go to, right? And so you can kind of see where we're going with this. But a few years back, people had tried to persecute me because I didn't think like the normal masses, and you take the M out of masses and you have asses. And so I don't want to be an ass. I don't want to think like the mass says, right? You go to mass at church, right? Your temple is supposed to be up here, people. This is where your temple is. You're not supposed to go to a church. So I thought I would enlighten people and stuff, and I thought I would try to change the world. And what was happening was I wasn't changing the world. I wasn't changing a gall darn thing. The world was changing me. And so then I came to the conclusion, don't try to change the world because the world will change you. And you look around and a lot of people become what they hate. Like they hate this politician and they hate what's going on at work. And so, they hate things and they actually wind up becoming what they hate. So it's there's a spell and they call it spelling. Spell in, just add a G, right? In a spell. And they call it cursive writing and they'll offer you a death sentence. And so, do you know your sentence structure? I bet you don't. And there's an alphabet. Somebody is betting on the fact that you don't know and they call it an alphabet. Okay. So, it's kind of really weird times. And so, I was going to stop putting out these videos and I had completely stopped for a while, and like a lot of people were saying, hey, where are you and how come you're not putting out videos? Well, this was the reason why, because it felt like it was a futile effort, right? And we live in a world where everything's a fight. It's a fight to get a better job. It's a fight to get a better learning education, the whole nine yards. And everything is a fight. And people run around and they're constantly using terms that they haven't got a clue what they mean. Like you go to court and they'll charge somebody for assault and battery. Well, salt is an electrical conductor and a battery is an electrical conductor. And you are comprised of salt. Hence, you've heard the term like, salt, are you a salt of the earth, right? Where would they come up with these terms and words? And then you would salutate, you would salute in the army, right? So, where do these people come up with these terms and words? And so, when you start digging deep down, and you don't have to go down the rabbit hole to figure this out, but when you stop watching television, television, and you stop watching all this garbage and listening to demonstrators, and you stop listening to all this nonsense, now you have a freer energy to actually look at the things that make sense in your life, right? Like we live in a pile of noise. And so, how can you have a clear mind when you're constantly bombarded with noise, whether it be television, music, this, that, right? The universe will be known when the mind is still. Okay, so when the mind is quiet, that's when the universe shall be known. And those who shall know this shall know the kingdom of heaven. Okay. So everybody is deceived, and then they will run around and they'll like even argue with each other. Well, I'm not deceived and I'm too smart for that. And people can't even admit to the fact that they're being hoodwinked. And you look around and it's nothing but death and poverty and destruction, and and so back to all these terms like assault and battery. Well, if somebody killed your battery and they killed you, they would have put your lights out, right? So where would that term come from? Obviously, they've killed the energy that is you, because you are a battery comprised of trillions of cells, okay? And if I took a voltmeter to you, I'll get a voltage reading off you to ground. And when you die, where do you go? You go to ground. So these people will go to court and you have assault and battery charges. Why would they say battery, right? And this is why. And so all these terms are being used, and nobody knows why they're even using these terms. Like police will run around and say freeze. Why are you supposed to turn into a sheet of ice? The police don't even know why they run around and tell you to freeze. They just think that freeze means stop, right? Well, yes and no, right? If the water froze, well, then the water wouldn't be falling from the waterfall if it froze. But that's a different scenario. So I just wanted to share this with you people. Like, all you have to do is look at the words, and you take the DNS out and you have a war. You have a war of words, and everybody's right and everybody's wrong, and I'm right and you're wrong, and you're right and I'm wrong, and nobody can admit to this, and nobody can agree on simple things because we have a fact that there is greed. Greed, right? So when you realize this, like the whole thing, like even like for example, how people have been hoodwinked, they think the theory of relativity is fact. Even Einstein said it's a theory. He wasn't sure if it was a fact or not. And then people will praise this guy. And, the funny part is, like, Einstein helped to build the atomic bomb. And you look at atomic and you have atom IC, and we are comprised of atoms. So all these terms are being used and nobody knows why. Just like they'll worship a guy like Einstein, and meanwhile he helped to develop the atomic bomb. And then we live in a world full of fear. Like, for example, well, if somebody presses the button to the nukes, I have news for you people. Nuclear devices do not exist. That's why a nuke has never been used. And you guys have been so hoodwinked, like people say, well, of course there's nukes. They nuked Japan. No, they didn't nuke Japan. They used atomic bombs, atoms that they blew up. They blew up the atoms, atom IC, and they blew up the atoms, and they effectively carpet bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima, okay? And so all this fear, like, well, if somebody loses it, they're going to press a nuke. Everything is fear-based. Atmosphere, you live in the atmosphere, and everything is fear-based because, no offense people, but like, I've watched numerous videos where these people who were actually trying to build the nuclear bomb said that they could not build it. It was impossible. No matter how hard they tried, it was almost like the universal cosmic creator wouldn't allow this. And that's what the one guy actually said. And then two people say, well, no, of course nukes exist. And well, look around. Has a nuke ever been used? If a nuke was used, we would be completely annihilated, right? And so this whole thing is preposterous, and everything is fear-based, and it's fear-based driven. Like, if I don't have enough money, I'm not going to eat today. And this is all fear-based, people, okay? And what is money? Money is the biggest religion in the world. And when you ask people what the biggest religion is, they'll say, oh, well, it's Christianity, and oh, it's Hinduism, and oh, it's this, and Judaism, and that's all a crock of horseshit. The biggest religion rely on, take the G out, is money, right? And that's why on the United States dollar bill it says, in God we trust, because people have made God, mammon, their money, right? And so you can see how this whole thing is preposterous. So I just wanted to share a lot of things with you guys, because effectively you're electrical in nature, and take the N out, at your, right? You're at, right? So you're electrical in charge, and that's why if somebody assaulted and batterized you, assault and battery, they are literally trying to put out your light. And you look at all these words, and do you have the skills to pay the bills? You got the kills to pay the bills. Take the S out of skill, you have kill. Take the K out of kill, you have ill. You look at bill, you take the B out, be ill. And what's the government doing? They're drawing up be ills. And then they're trying to increase the debt ceiling again, when people are trillions of dollars in debt. And you take the tri out of trillions, and you have ill ions, right? So mil ion, ill ion, right? And then you're just part of like the run of the mill, right? Where's that term come from, right? So now you're just part of the mill, and you take the M out, and you are gonna get ill. So you've been milled, and they'll process it like a piece of processed cheese. You look around, our food is garbage, our money is garbage. The banks own everything, but yet you can't own everything. And if you can't own anything, which obviously you can't even own the shit that comes out of your ass. And the universal waitress said that we have dominion over things, but that we cannot own things. And then people get caught up in the spell, the gospel, and they get all confused in all this stuff. And there are so many stories, like you look at the gospel, and there's a story about the Son of Man, which was born from the loins of a woman. And then you also have a story about the sun in the sky called the sun god, right? They might call it Horus, Amun-Ra, whatever, right? And all these people are running around using these terms, and they don't realize that there's a bit of truth mixed in with a pile of shit to keep you confused. So now you're fused by cons. Fusion is another electrical term, right? And your voltage, right? You are the age of the volt, right? And then when you get out of hand, you would revolt, right? So you can see where I'm kind of going with this. So I just wanted to share this with you people. A lot of people, they're going down this rabbit hole, and the rabbit hole is designed to keep you confused, right? And then people will go to court and they will refuse things, which if you refuse something, it means that you've refused yourself. You've reattached yourself to something. And fuse is an electrical term too. You would use a fuse in your panel box, and should there be an oversurge of current, your fuse will blow, right? It will trip, right? So I just wanted to share this stuff with you people. Like, people use so many expressions and words, and like, wake up, and like, why are you going to a funeral? Awake is a funeral. Awake is a water term for the water that's being propelled at the end of the propeller, and in propel you have L, which should suggest to you that you are electrical in nature, because you are L of him, L of her, etc., right? So then you're almost back to the Bible, where you have two spells. You have the Son of God in the sky, which was born of the Virgo, the Virgin, the Mary. Then you had the kiss of death, which is Judas. And then we live in the age of Pisces, Pi says, and that's why, like in the Bible, they're talking about giving a fish as opposed to being selfish, right? You're not supposed to sell fish to your neighbor. You're supposed to offer your neighbor a fish out of the graciousness, the grace out of your heart, okay? And if you take heart and you reverse the supposition, the anagram, you have earth. So we are earthly beings, and we are not supposed to be running around killing each other and picking up weapons and the whole 9 yards. Now, the whole thing is just crazy. So I just wanted to share this with you. This isn't an in-depth video on anything, but we live in a society, you've been tied to a war with words. And that's why the pen is mightier than the sword anymore, because people got tired of running around and killing each other with swords and guns, right? Otherwise, you'd be called cannon fodder. And what is cannon fodder? That is a military joke to the higher-ups for the front line to go and get bombed by cannons, right? So you're almost back to nukes. People, while nukes exist, all these people talk about shit they haven't got the foggiest clue, because honestly, if a nuke existed, why hasn't some crazy son of a gun already pressed this red button? And why is the button always red? Maybe it could be blue or yellow, right? You see where I'm going with this? So nukes don't exist, and all this stuff in our society is simply fear-based, and you live in the atmosphere. Atmosphere. You should not live atmosphere, right? You should not be in fear at all, right? Satan knocked, but faith answered, not fear answered, right? You take the F out of fear and you have ear. So everybody's hearing with their ears, and then it develops and turns into just add an F, and now we have fear. We're back to like everybody's running around getting emotionally crazy, and you're not supposed to be emotional about anything. You're supposed to be level-headed and keep on a level plane, not a high plane or a low plane. You don't get high off nothing. and you keep a level plane, and everybody runs around trying to explain themselves, and then they will call it a discussion. Discuss I on, right? So you're being cussed at, cussed I on, right? And so sorry, I'm forgetting where I'm going with this, but anyhow, this is all you look at things, and like I say, you take the F out of fear, and you have ear, and we have two ears and one mouth, and everybody's running around, and they're not willing to listen, but yet they're willing to espouse information out of the one mouth they have, and you might call it verbal diarrhea. And then you have all these politicians backstabbing each other, and well, that's so and so, they're just a whore and a traitor, and that's so and so, and so we live in a world that's a bastardization of people trying to deliver you messages and have you live in fear. But if you remove the F out of fear, and you're not listening with your ears anymore to a message or the context, well, then you're not part of the noise, right? Maybe you live in Illinois. Everything's ill in this society. Pillage, village, skill, kill, ill, be ill, bills, right? Ailments, right? Mailmen, ailments, right? Like, you can see where I'm going with this. So I just wanted to share this with you. This is nothing about a particular thing, but like, this is called enlightenment. And naturally, when you start realizing the fact that you're receiving this enlightenment, you've come to the conclusion that there's nothing enlightening about it at all, because you realize that we live in a world where it's nothing but fear and kill and skill. And so you got the skills to pay the bills. Take the S out, you got the kills to pay the bills, right? And then you'll go and get a career, and you take the C out of career, and you have a rear, so you will be in arrears, right? And then you want to deal with a broker, you take the R out, you will be broke, and then you're getting exchanged, you're trading on the stock exchange, and these are called traders or traders who trade on the stock exchange, and you're getting exchanged at your expense to be frank. Pence was the British form of currency. Franc was the French form of currency, to be frank. So again, everybody's using these terminologies and these words like, is your ship afloat? Why would your ship be afloat when you live on land? Your ship should only be afloat when you're on the waterways, right? And so, we have all this crazy nonsense, and basically everybody has gotten away from God's laws. I'll do another video on God's laws. God's laws is like, you have the gift of free will, you have the law of attraction, you have the gift of repentance, and there's one or two more, I can't remember right now. And these are God's laws. You are not supposed to follow man's laws, because man's laws follow them to a letter. And you look at L, and what is L? It's a letter, or it's basically a 90-degree angle, and it's used in electricity all the time, right? So I just want to share this, just like salt. Salt is a conductive medium, and you are comprised of salt. Hence, that's why, like, if you don't have a certain amount of salt or iodine, you'll die, right? And this is why we call people, like, terms like, well, she's the salt of the earth. So everybody runs around using these terms, and they haven't got the foggiest clue. Like, why is the officer telling you to freeze? That's the most craziest thing I've ever heard. And meanwhile, the officer doesn't even know why he's telling you to freeze. He's just telling you to freeze because that's what he's heard. Freeze or I'll shoot. And shoot is a phallic symbol. You would shoot semen out of your penis, right? And then when you join the Navy or the military, now you become a seaman as opposed to the seaman. And they even have a beer they call Sleeman's, and you take the S out and you have semen, right? So nobody runs around questioning why they're drinking spirits called Sleeman. You savvy? Then they're inducing themselves with these spirits, right? This alcohol. Alcohol is a derivative from Al Ghul, which was Batman's arch nemesis in the old comics. And even comic, com-I-C, right? You're almost to like comedy, come die, right? And then we'll give our children candies, can die, because candies, can die, are not good for you, right? So when you look around and you realize that everything is a complete spell, then you're free. You don't have to go down rabbit holes and try to decipher the little bit of truth that's interwoven with all these lies by these demonstrators. And we all know clearly that history, his story or high story, is always written by the victors. You know, you even look at World War II and everybody, oh, well, the amount of Jews that died. Yes, it's atrocious. And meanwhile, it was a group of Ashkenazis who killed these Jews, okay? And then you look at, say, North America, how many natives got off in North America, right? Millions, right? You look at how many Russians got off in the Russian wars. Millions. You look at how many Chinese died to the hands of Mao and all these emperors, and hence that's where like empires are built, and everything is Sun Tzu, and it's conquer and divide stuff to conquer and divide you. And the easiest, one of the first acts of warfare is to not let your neighbor know that you are at war with them and pretend that you are their friends. And so now, meanwhile, I'm pretending that you're friends. I'm bringing in all this all these weird drugs anymore, like fentanyl, which is killing people. So now I don't have to kill anybody with guns and tanks, and I don't even have to waste the money on bullets. I can just use fentanyl to off half a population, because people are unhappy, and we're in a time, end times, where it's spiritual warfare, and this is the money extraction energy matrix. And you look at matrix and you have tricks, right? Tricks are for kids, silly rabbit, right? Didn't you know this, right? So I just want to share this. Don't be blinded by the light off your television, the light off these history books and all this stuff. And this is all useless knowledge. Like, if you put a child out in the bush and the child never heard of Trump and the child never went to school and got programmed and all this stuff, would the child care about all that stuff? Obviously not. The child would be too busy learning what plants to eat, what food to hunt, how to build water cisterns, the whole 9 yards. And that is useful knowledge, not useless knowledge, right? And that stuff is priceless. You cannot put a price on that. And we live in a society where, like, if somebody was starving and they had to go out in the bush and live, well, they wouldn't live too long. They would die real fast, because they don't even know what plants are edible and what plants aren't edible. Half of them probably wouldn't even know how to start a fire if they didn't have a lighter in their hands or a book of matches. So you can see how preposterous this is. We have been driven away from the very essence that is us, and we've stepped out of the Garden of Eden, right? We have to come back to the Garden of Eden, which is not listening to politicians, not listening to demo-C rats, right? Hence the term, all these rats are jumping ship. Where do all these terms come from? You have to look at it. It's like, oh, she makes me so horny. Why are you growing horns out of your head? People are using a language, a gauge on the land, a land gauge, that they have not the foggiest clue about anything. And meanwhile, you could say, simply put, like I was talking with somebody a few days ago, and they're like, well, that doesn't mean that. And I'm like, man, pick up a dictionary, read the dictionary. These aren't my words. I can't make this shit up, right? And this isn't my truth. This is just the truth of the situation. And the truth of the situation is, you must bend to the truth or you will live a lie. So not an ounce of this is my truth. The truth was already here before any one of us got to us. And so if I'm reaching any of you people, I'm just helping you realize that the true essence, before we all stepped out of the Garden of Eden, the true real essence, which is you. You follow me? You see where I'm going with this, people? So I just wanted to espouse this. Getting back to the Garden of Eden is not listening to demonstrators, demons traders, not listening to politicians, right? And again, you have a negative pole and a positive pole on a battery, and then we're listening to politicians, right? And you have one politician being negative and the other one being positive, and people are saying, well, I'm going to vote for the positive one, or I'm going to vote for the negative one. They don't even understand why. You should not even be voting for somebody outside of yourself, because now I'm imposing my will upon you. Like, people will say, well, democracy is the will of the people. Well, so is gang rape, for God's sakes, right? If 10 people decide to rape a woman, I would say that's democracy, and that's the will of the people. It's, you take the W out of will and you have ill. And it's supposed to be the Creator's will, thy will be done, not your will, right? You even take the Y out of your and you have ours, our will, okay? Judgment is mine, saith the Lord, not yours. We are not supposed to run around and judge people. And I'm going to judge this politician because I prefer Biden over Trump, and I'm judging Trump, and I prefer Biden. Now I vote for Biden. That creates a rift in my family because some of my family they think Trump is God. And again, look, Trump is God. So now we're imposing each other's wills. Take the W out, ills on each other by voting for everybody, and this is called demonocracy. Democracy. Demo is short for demolish or demolition. Demo, okay, people? You are demoing something, and we should not be demoing anything. And this nonsense of voting for somebody thinking that they're going to be your savior like Trump to come along and to make things right. This guy is a demonstrator, and he's always on TV demonstrating, on television. And then you have all these whores on the news channels trying to make money by allowing this guy to espouse lies by broadcasting, casting spells, right? Just like a movie cast. It's no different than a Hollywood cast. It's a cast of magic. And the tree used for magic is the Hollywood tree. People, I can't make this shit up. And so everybody's enamored by everything that is outside of themselves, when you should not be enamored by bullshit that is outside of yourself. Like when I make $1 million, I'm going to be happy. Now that is something that is outside of yourself. When I have a bigger house, now we're going to be happy. Again, people are getting emotional, and you're supposed to remain like Spock off Star Trek, where he didn't run off emotions, right? He ran off of whether or not shit made sense or it didn't make sense. It was logical or it was illogical. Do you want to be illogical? Then you will be of the mind, and you will be a thin king. You won't be as king because you will be thinking all the time. We are not supposed to be thinking about garbage that is outside of ourselves. And back to ill, you want to be an ill ion air. It's all in the air, people. It's all bullshit. And people have given this a charge, and that's why they call it currency, because now they're charging up money. And where do you find the currency? Well, you find the current down by the water. And where do you find banks? You find banks down by the riverbanks, down by the water in most metropolitan cities. And speaking of city, where do you live? In a city. That's a derivative from electricity or ampacity, amp a city, or take the P out, am a city. You are not supposed to incite yourself as being part of a city, and you're not supposed to incite yourself as everything that you want is always outside of yourself. The kingdom of heaven is within to those who shall know themselves and shall know thine kingdom. The kingdom that is within, okay? Not the kingdom that was without. So this is all a lie, and it's a belief, and you take the F out of belief, and we have a be lie. So do you want to be a lie? Do you want to be lying something? Well, I know Jesus is coming to save us, or Trump is coming to save us because everybody told us so. But if I asked you if you ever saw Jesus, well, no. So how do you know he's coming to save us? Well, everybody tells me so. So we live in a world where you just believe what you're told, right? And again, we're back to a war of words. If I can confuse you, now you don't know who you are. You're looking for everything outside of yourself instead of inside yourself. And that's why actions, actions, speak louder than words. Talk is cheap, man. It's bullshit. And silence is golden. And you take the L out of gold and you have God. Okay, people? So, yes, people can get into, well, God spelled backwards is dog. And I'm just using the universal cosmic waitress creator, God, as a term that people will understand. But again, people, come out of the spell, get out of the go spell, the gospel, and come back down to planet Earth. You know, you live on the planet. Are you part of the plan? right? You're part of the net plan, and what would you receive at work at the end of the day? A net pay. You take the W out of wages that you're making, and you're living in ages, and people call this management. Man, age, and men. You are not supposed to manage men. This is the universal creator's job, not yours. And vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, not yours, right? You take the Y out of yours and you have ours. It's not supposed to be ours. So again, you can see a spell, yours, ours, just add a Y, right? Does everything make sense to you? SENTS or SENSE. And, it's like Barack Obama back in the day. Well, we're looking for change. But he never specified what kind of change he was looking for. So that tells me that he was looking for the change in your wallet, right? He's looking for change. He wants your currency. And this is the currency is basically when we use currency against each other, and I have $1 million and you don't, now I'm better off than you, but I am also helping you by having all this money to not help you by watching you starve while I'm like, say, Jeff Bezos, where I have trillions of dollars, and you take the T and the R out and you have ill ions, ill. So everything is ill based in this society, which is all bullshit lies. And again, do you belie in this? Do you believe in this? Take the V and the E out and you're back to belie. So everybody's running around believing in shit that they know nothing about. They've never had the experience of learning something, and they're all running around and everybody's an expert. And look at the terms. Do you want to listen to an expert? They know nothing. They're always speculating, which is imagination. And you look up magi and it says necromancers, spell casting, future forecasting, speculation, voodoo, black magic. And then we go to court and we deal with a magistrator. Like people. I cannot make this shit up. So I didn't know where this conversation is going to go, but I decided to put out a few videos for you people because, like, whether I pretty much love everybody. Even if they're evil, doesn't mean I want them sitting at my dinner table with me, but do I still wish they eat? Yes. Do I wish these evil people find the grace of God? Yes, I do. Because if I run around judging people, then I'm going to become like what I'm judging, and I don't want to judge. Vengeance is mine. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, not mine, right? And this is why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should listen more than we talk, because everybody's talking and they're all babbling, and they were told to come out of Babylon, my people, unless ye want to partake in her sins, okay? So I can't emphasize this enough. I'm going to let this be, and the only reason I'm putting out more videos is I think over the years I've become more of an effective, better speaker, and I'm more I'm more able to talk at par and relay things back to an electrical term. A relay is an electrical term, and relay things back to you guys, just like a relay. When you run a relay, you pass the baton, right? And so again, people are using electrical terms and they're not even curious why, right? So I'm going to leave it at this. I hope this video finds you well. I send everybody much peace, love, respect, always will, always do. Until then, keep your heads up, your sticks on the ice. Namaste, cheers, bye, peace. Love y'all, God bless. Cheers.